ago, started this last message in our series on the walk, or biblical discipleship. And this last lesson that we started on is on what it all comes down to. After we've lived our Christian life, after we've walked in the Spirit, after we have ministered the way God has intended us to, there will come a day, there will come a time that we will stand before Him. And that's one of the things that as we've talked about this, we talked about what the judgment looks like. And there is a judgment. As a matter of fact, the fact that there is a judgment is why people do not want to believe in God. Ultimately, when you ask somebody, and I've been in that situation, I know I've shared the experience with you before, that a guy who was the head of the Cincinnati chapter of the American Atheist Association came to my church. I'm sure there were other atheists that had been coming to my church. I just didn't know it, But he came, and he was the guy that wore the little badge that said Scott the Atheist. And he came, and I had a chance to talk to him. And it was interesting that the most compelling thing about it, when you really narrow down about what an atheist believes or why they're an atheist, and he shared the same thing, and that was, I don't want to be accountable to anybody. I don't believe that I am accountable to anybody. That I'm autonomous as a person. Now, there is a movement today. It's not really a movement. It's more of a political philosophy. There's a lot of good in it, but there's also some things that we got to be careful because it doesn't completely follow a biblical worldview, and that is libertarianism. Now, there are those that are libertarian who believe much as we believe. I mean, unless you're really, really, really supportive of the government's control of your life, you wouldn't want to be a libertarian. Libertarianism is really totally against that idea. It puts a lot of emphasis on the autonomy of man. Now, I realize that as a free country, as a free nation, we believe that we have rights, inalienable rights, that God has given us. And these rights are not given to us. By the way, we have no rights given to us by government. Government doesn't give us any rights. They protect our rights. The rights that God gave us. They're God-given rights. And a lot of those that follow this libertarian, they're very strong in the individual rights, almost to the detriment of any kind of control whatsoever. But what it leaves out much of the time, and that is that when you leave or when you accept a philosophy that is fully man-centered, in other words, freedom from yourself and in yourself to do whatever you want to do, you're going to begin following practices, or at least condoning practices, that are not godly. So many people who started as conservatives have moved to libertarianism, and now they're doing legalization of drugs, and in some cases abortion, and a lot of things, because if, and I'm not saying all libertarians, I have many friends that are, and kind of moving that way, and trying to get me to go that way, and there's some things that we agree on, but what I'm saying is that if you believe in any philosophy, whether it's political or theological or anything, that puts man up and God down, or takes rules away in order for feelings, emotions, and impressions to take them, you're going to be in bad place. And when it comes to judgment, or the fact that we have a judge, somebody that we are accountable to, God's not accountable to us. We forget that sometimes, don't we? We go through a hard time, we go through a difficult time, we go through an impossible time. It's very easy for us to look at God and say, I don't like this. If I'm going to follow you, God, you better do it my way. And then you say, well, I would never really say that. No, you probably wouldn't say that. But there's times that we have all felt that because of our sinful natures. Because there are times that we simply have a hard time bowing to the sovereignty of God. We're used to Him coming to us. He's a good God. He's a loving God. He cares about us. But we forget that God has a purpose and a plan, and that we fit into His plan. It's not about Him fitting into our plan. It's about us fitting into His plan. And so, with that, again, the idea of a judgment is something that most people, the average person, doesn't like to think about. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's times that I'm not sure I want to think a lot about judgment. As a matter of fact, that can be the stereotypical thing about a pastor is that he's always preaching on the judgment of God, or the wrath of God, and these kind of things. Well, the Bible talks of those things, and those are realities. And when, like in this series, we start with what we understand about salvation, and we work through all of the basic beliefs, it comes down to when you stand before God one day, what's it going to look like? When you give an account for your life, how many of you have life? How many of you are alive? Okay, some of you haven't. God bless your heart. But if you're alive, you have one life that God has given you. And you may not have started well, or you may have, as you progress through your life, you may come to a place in your life where you have failed, you have done wrong, you've taken sidetrack, you have sinned, you have broken the law. There's a lot of things that we've done. The idea then is to get it right with God so that we finish well. And then when we stand before God and we give an account of our life, we can give a good account. As a matter of fact, your goal should be that you can stand in boldness before God someday. Not in arrogance, but in confidence. In confidence to say, God, you have forgiven me. You blessed me. You have used me. And Father, I love you through my life. My goal as your pastor is, of course, first of all, make sure I'm there, but to help you get there. And that's why the purpose of this lesson about judgment is so important, because it puts everything back into perspective. What does it mean to be accountable? What is it that I will be accountable for? Now, last time we talked about this, we started with understanding what the nature of the judgment seat is. Now, we're talking about the judgment of Christians. If you're lost here today, you don't know Jesus, there is a judgment for you. It's called the Great White Throne Judgment. And it's at that the names that are written in the Lamb's Book of Life will be checked. And if your name is not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, you're cast into the lake of fire. Now, I don't say that glibly. I don't say that happily. I don't say that in a snarky way. That's what the Bible teaches us in Revelation chapter 20. But it's a warning to us that we are not caught in that place. And so my hope for anyone that doesn't know Jesus, that's never truly accepted Christ, and I know there are a lot of people that have made professions, but they don't possess it. And my hope for you is that you will trust Christ to forgive you your sins and to give you new life. That's my hope for you. And if you do, then this sermon is for you. And that is that someday, as believers, we will stand before Christ. Now, this judgment is going to face all of us as Christians. This is the judgment it's a judgment of not our works or our sins, because that was all judged on the cross. But rather, it is a judgment for our ministries, our service, our motivation. What motivated me in my life? This is a judgment for our service to Christ. And it's in Romans 14:10. It says, but why dost thou judge thy brother? Why dost thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. See, it's easy for us to judge other people, what they do and why they do what they do. But someday you will give account. And I think we need to keep a fresh look at our own life. Jesus said it this way: be sure that you take the beam out of your own eye before you try to take splinters out of other people's eyes. You see. And then we want to understand what you'll be judged at the judgment seat of Christ. And again, it's the judgment for the work that you have done for Christ. Did you use Christ for your benefit, or did you let Christ use you for His glory, His benefit? Your work is going to be judged. It tells us in 1 Corinthians 3:13, it's going to be judged for what manner our work, our ministry is. Whatever you've done for the Lord, that's what the judgment's going to be. Why did you do it? Did you do this for you, or did you do it for God? Now, I'm going to be honest. It's just us. Okay, let's just be honest. There are times that we do good things for us. I mean, we do good things for other people, for us. You know, if we see somebody in need, it's easy for us to say, well, listen, brothers, I hope they can do it. I hope they can get through this. But if we see somebody in need that we feel like there could be a benefit for us, we're going to jump right in and help. And there's sometimes that we do that in ministry. That's why a lot of people do what they do because they believe there's some glory for themselves. And it may not be glory like a pat on the back or someone saying, hey man, you're great. It may just simply be something that you desire, and if I do this, it'll meet that desire. Whatever it can be. But see, when we do work, church ministry, personal ministry, whatever we do, our main objective is always for the glory of Christ. Let's do what we do to honor God. Even if it means winning somebody to Jesus, it is to see that person come to Jesus Christ for salvation, but ultimately it's for the glory of God. It's for Him. It's for who God is and for what He is. And that's what we'll be judged for, is whether that was truly our objective. Duty and obedience are more important than feelings and emotions. Now, when I preach this point, I said 2 weeks ago, so 3 weeks ago. Allie was here, my daughter Allie. And I made that point that a lot of people no longer, or a lot of the younger people no longer do things out of duty and obedience. They do it out of feelings and emotions and that kind of thing. She took me to task. I'm just going to be honest with you. She said, Dad, I know what you were saying. I agree with what you were saying. But listen, when you talk in generalities like that about a generation, she said that kind of turns people off. You know? And I said, well, I understand that. You understood the point? She goes, I understood the point. And I said, okay, well, next time I go up and I go over this point, I'll clarify. So here's my clarification. There are as many spiritually sensitive young people as there are spiritually sensitive older people. And there are younger people, and I'm speaking in generality as far as what many of our young people are taught or led to do or to be. And some have, and they're the ones that usually get on YouTube or, they have a YouTube channel or something, and they look at truth through their emotions, their feelings, and their experiences. And that's a great thing. But if you look throughout history, what generation hasn't done it? See, older generations, we may not have the same type of feelings and emotions that the younger people have, but many things that we do is why? Because we're sentimental. That's a feeling. We're led by our sentiments as opposed to truth. So I guess what I'm saying is older people are just as bad as younger people. How about that? Okay? I'm teasing. But the point I'm trying to make is that that there is no generation that is without the truth. Nor is there a generation that can't grow in the truth. Okay? So I'm going to send this to Allie, and she'll see it. I'm teasing. She'll get so mad if she knew I said this in front of her. But anyway, but the fact is that we've got to make sure that whatever we do, it's out of a heart of truth, obedience, submission to God. It's not about us. It's not how we perceive it, other than if we perceive it according to Scripture. Years ago, we were in a ministry in Cincinnati. And we were in, I shared it with you, we were in a building that was just deteriorating, it was in bad shape. So what we decided to do is to meet at a hotel until we could move forward in our building program and to relocate and do what we needed to do, because the building we were in was just a mess. It was leaky roof, there was mold in the building. It was, try to get families to come to that. Okay, that's hard. Not sure I wanted my family to go there. And so we decided, what we did is we rented, there was a huge Holiday Inn that was close to the church. And so it had all these conference rooms, it had these ballrooms, and we rented that for all of our services. Sunday morning, and we had Sunday evening service. Now the ballroom we used for the worship service, and the conference rooms we used for the Sunday school. And here's what happened. We grew. We nearly doubled because we put little signs out to direct people. People would drive by and they said, "It's a new church." Well, we weren't a new church. Church has been there since 1956. But this was in 2004. But people came in and they said, "Man, it's a new church. Let's do it. Wow, this is great." And they began to come, and there was such an excitement, and there was all this great thing. And but in the middle of all that, there were those that said, "But what if I die? Where am I going to have my funeral?" And I thought, "Do you want to have it in a moldy building? We'll work that out. We'll help you with it. But knowing me, what my explain. Well, you can't die. You're just not going to be able to die. I'm sorry. But the fact is they can have a sentiment over truth. There was fear that things weren't going to be the same when God was doing something else. Now, when I was younger, I was getting change. I love change. Anything different. Let's freshen this up. Let's do this up. Of course, as normally, as you get older, you get a little set. You kind of like, there's a little security thing there, and you don't want to go too far. But then I realized, are we trusting our experience? Are we trusting ourselves over what God is doing? And I said this before, and I'll say it again. I'll say it 100 times. Usually what God is doing is totally out of our comfort zone. God very seldom works in my comfort zone. He hardly ever does. He's always got to pull me out of my comfort zone. He's always got to take me to a new place or a different place, because I can then lay back on my own experience. And that's what I'm saying, that someday we'll be judged for. Did you do it for yourself, for your own comfort, for your own peace, for your own security, or did you do it for God? And that's why we have to change the way we think. And that's why you said, "I can't change it." Well, you can if you have the Holy Spirit. That's why we're given the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit enables us to change. He changes us. That's called sanctification. And so we've got to yield ourselves to the Lord working in our life. God tries our hearts by giving us a task to perform. And I had buzzed through this, and I don't think we even read our text, did we? Let's all stand. I just got so excited, I had to preach for 2 weeks, so I just had to. Let's read together Hebrews chapter 9. Look at verse 24. "For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Nor yet that ye should offer himself often, as the high priest entereth into the holy place every year with blood of others. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. But now once in the end of the world hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. So Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin and salvation." Let's pray. Our Father, we do thank you for meeting with us today. Thank you for all that you have done. And Lord, we know that someday we will stand before you, and I pray that when we do, we will give a good account to you. Lord, bless this message. I pray that it will speak to our hearts and lead us in the right way. In Jesus' name, amen. You see that? And I won't go back to where I started, okay? Let's start with the third point. This is where we're going to start today. You covered points 1, 2, last couple weeks. Point number 3, and that's this. We need to understand the negative consequences of this judgment. What are the negative consequences of standing before God? Now, the positive, we're going to talk about the positive. But let's first of all, what happens when you die? You stand before God someday, which the Bible tells us it's pointed at everyone that wants to die. After this is the judgment. Well, here's what's going to happen. The negative is this: there will be loss and shame. Those are possible. There could be loss and shame. Paul said, in speaking of the judgment seat of Christ in 2 Corinthians 5:11, that the terror of the Lord should motivate us to serve him and persuade others. The terror of the Lord. A Christian should never fear going to hell. But there are some things to be aware of in relation to the final judgment. There are some things that and by the way, the word terror there is the word fear. And I know a lot of people will say, well, the fear of the Lord doesn't mean that we're afraid of the Lord. It means that we respect and we reverence the Lord. That's true, but it's half true. It does mean, fear of the Lord does mean that we're afraid of God at times. It's the same word. When you reverence God and you're afraid of God, it's the exact same Greek and Hebrew word. The difference is you. It's whether you're in a good place with God or you are in a bad place with God. If you're in a good place with God and you're serving Him and you're loving Him, then you hold Him in reverence, you hold Him in respect, you love Him, and you can't wait to be with God's people, you can't wait to get in the Word of God, you can't wait to pray. It's just these things are like wonderful things. And then when you're not, you want to keep as far away from God's people as you can. You don't really spend a lot of time in prayer. You read the Bible is really rather boring. It's really not what I want to do. And there's just a lot of other things in life. And that's where the terror of the Lord should come in. Give you an example. My dad, as you know, was my principal when I was growing up in high school. Now imagine that, your dad being your principal, okay? Dad was my dad. I loved him and I respected him until we were at school. And then there was the terror of Dad, you see. And it was, the other kids at least got to go home and be away from school. I had went home to school. And Dad, you get your homework done, let me check it over, let me do, all that kind of thing. But the way I felt about my dad is that when I was in doing good, doing right, working hard, we had a great relationship. It was about reverence and respect. When I wasn't, I was afraid of him. Or as we used to say, we were scared. Scared of him. Afraid of him. Same that. And I didn't want to be around him. And Dad always knew where I was by my response to him. If he said, hey, I'm going to go somewhere, you'll go with me, and I jumped at the chance, he knew he's in a good place. He said, I got to go somewhere, why don't you go with me? I don't know. He knew something wrong. I was loved is when I was doing wrong, there was this paranoia that I would have. He's going to find out. So Dad would stick his head in and goes, how you doing? Why? Okay, and Dad would come in and sit down. Okay, let's talk. This is what we're talking about with God. The terror of the Lord. We're to love Him, to reverence and honor Him. But when we are not in His will and we're out of fellowship with God, we should be scared. We should be scared. We should be looking over our shoulder. Not continue that way. When we get to that place and we realize that that's our response to God, the first thing we need to do is repent, confess, go to God, and make it right. Don't live there. Don't stay there. Make it right. And some people live there. They live there. And ultimately they reject Christ in their life. And so what he's saying here concerning the judgment, that there is a terror. There should be a fear that someday when we stand before Him, and because of that fear, that should motivate us, don't go there. Let's let that fear and that terror be that of reverence and respect before God. And we'll read here in a little bit that we can stand in confidence before God the judgment. We can. It's not a dream. It's not, I'd love to, but someday I'm going to stand before God. It's going to be tough. It doesn't have to be. And that's why God gave us His Word, so it doesn't have to be. You see, that's the thing. God wrote His Word, gave us His Word, so that one day when we go to Him, we stand before Him, we can stand in confidence and love. And the judgment can actually be a good thing. That's what we want. That's what we want. See, some Christians are going to be found. Here's where the loss and shame comes in. Some Christians are going to stand before God someday, and they're going to see that they're not living for the Lord when He comes back. See, Jesus could come back today. And if he was to come back today, would you be ashamed? Would you be ashamed? Look at 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2. Would you be ashamed if he's coming? First John chapter 2, verse 28. He says, "And now, little children, abide in him, that when when he shall appear, we may have confidence and not be ashamed of his works." He says, abide in him. Abide in him. There are going to be those, and it may be you today, that you're not abiding in him. You're overcome by fear, you're overcome by yourself, you're overcome by your own expectations, your own things, and that's where your confidence lies. It's not in God. If that's the case, then you're not abiding in him. And the opposite, or when you aren't abiding in him, the opposite is going to happen. Rather than you being confident and bold before him, you're going to be in fear and trembling before God. There are those that are going to suffer loss because the works they did were, the majority of what they did in life was temporary, and it wasn't eternal. How much of our time is put into temporary things? Things that are not going to last. I like what David Jeremiah said. There are no luggage racks on hearses. When you go, you're not taking anything with you. And I think the truth is this, that a lot of what we pour our hearts and our money and our time into is stuff for here. And not even throughout all of our life, just for time. That we would put our money in so that we can benefit, but we don't put in anything into eternity. You may save money, you may invest money, but what are you doing for eternity? And that's a lot of people don't have that view. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Some of you may be saying, what translation are you reading out of, Pastor? The King James. And I'm reading it because I've been using it all week. It's my old Bible. It's fallen apart. And it just got to be my buddy today. And I just took it with me. And I said, everybody's got their Bible. They'll read along. They'll enjoy what translation you have. I'm just going to use this today. 1 Corinthians 3, look at verse 15. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. But he himself shall be saved, yet so by fire. It's not an issue of your soul, it's an issue of your works. It's not an issue of your eternity, it is an issue of your present. How do you live now? Last Sunday, Kobe Bryant, his daughter, passed away. And I was sorry, that was rough. As a father and a child, I was actually with my daughter at that time when we found that out. And that's such a sad thing. Young man, family. I know there were some issues in the past and all that kind of thing. Don't understand that, but anytime a man and his child dies, it's a tragic thing. And I just kept seeing all of the tributes rolling in, which that's fine. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I understand it. But how many people died last Sunday who were godly, who gave their life for Jesus, who worked hard for people to come to Christ, who died quiet, silent? See, I think that the majority, again, I'm not judging Kobe Bryant or anything like that. What I'm saying is that there are those that have invested their life in eternity that we may not recognize. But when they get to heaven and they stand before God, he loves you. It's like the missionary and his wife, this couple, they had been in Africa for years and years and years. They were coming back on a ship. As they were coming back in the ship, they had been there for like 40, 45 years on the mission field. As they were coming in, they saw all these people standing at the dock. They had these people they had confetti and they had banners, and he said, look at there. Look at that. can you believe they are waiting for us, and how exciting it is that they acknowledge the fact that we have served the Lord all these years. Oh, it's great to be home, it's great to be home, it's great to be home. And as they pulled in, they realized it wasn't for Dale. It was for a politician who was on the boat. Politician, they pushed them aside, the politician got out. Once he walked out, the people followed him, and he was left, and the dock was empty. Missionary turned his wife and said, we served the Lord all these years. We deprived ourselves of goods so that people could be saved. And when we come back, when we come home, there's nobody here. His wife puts her hand on his shoulder. Sit at home. We're not here. That shouldn't just be a little quip. That should be our attitude. Whatever we accomplish here, praise the Lord. If we can accomplish great things for God, praise the Lord. The issue is, what will eternity be? What are we doing for Christ? And not for our own fame. And not for our own... So, I'll tell you, the greatest theologian, the greatest pastor, the greatest father, the greatest husband was in this church a month ago. Got a walker. Finished his ministry 2 years ago in a little church in Ozark, Missouri. And I'll tell you, that man knows more Bible than anybody I've ever read or heard. And there's not a lot of people waiting for him. That's my dad. But every time I call him, every time I talk to him, I recognize what God has done to that man. See, one thing people don't realize even about my dad is that years ago, back in the 70s, he taught a class of college students in the early 70s in Springfield, where the Bible college I went to that he went to. And in that class, there were many men who studied under my dad. Almost all of those men have become missionaries, evangelists, and pastors. They've influenced this country and others. And every once in a while they'll message my dad or they'll talk to my dad. It's an amazing thing that he has had that kind of influence. And it's like that there's an influence that you may have. Some of you, when you go to heaven, you'll realize that you influenced someone that you had no idea that you influenced. You had no idea that you had the impact in their life, that not only did they come to Christ, but their generations of family because of your faithfulness. There was you got to follow this story, okay? I have a dear friend who pastors my wife's home church. Mom, they used to be a member of the Deacon Baptist Church in Taylor. The pastor of that church now is a man by the name of John Riley. He's been here. He preached not long after I first came. He preached for me one Sunday when I had to be away. Well, John's wife, Rhonda, I grew up with in Springfield, Missouri. We both went to school together. This is long before I met Karen, long before any of the connection to Michigan and all that. But we were two kids growing up in Missouri and we went to school together. Well, this girl, Rhonda, who's John's wife, who's the pastor of Deacon Baptist Church, her mother witnessed to my mother, shared the gospel with her before my mother got saved. My mom didn't get saved at that time. But the gospel that her mother shared with my mom stuck in her head. And it ultimately did it someone else. She planted the seed, it took somebody else to water it and to harvest it. And she got saved. Well, my mom and my dad were a member of this certain church. This lady who shared the gospel with my mom, her husband was pastor of a church in the city. After about 15 years, the two churches decided to combine. So my mom and that lady met each other at the first service that they were combined. And the lady said to my mom, she says, I know you. You're very familiar. And she goes, you're the first person to share the gospel. She wasn't really the first person to share. My mom grew up in church. But the first person that actually took her Bible out and shared the Romans Road so that my mother would understand it, she was the first one to do that. And as a result, she was saved. My mom and dad got saved. Dad went into ministry. Dad was a part of this, and they served together. They had a child. That child is now married to this pastor who was a youth pastor of Karen, who influenced Karen. When I met her in college, she knew that. Long short of it is there are things that, let me just cut right to it. There are things in your life that God is doing that you will have no idea. Maybe not even on the surface. But God is working if you make yourself available. That's what we got to do. We've got to live beyond our desires, our gratification. We've got to serve the Lord. Serve the Lord. And that's why we're together as a church, to serve Him together, to help each other, strengthen each other. And if we don't, we're going to suffer loss. We're going to miss it. We're going to lose rewards because we live in sin, in pride, for our own selves, rather than for Jesus Christ. Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 5. 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Look at verse 10. He says, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body, according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. You see, it's important that as we are given a reward, it's because we put Christ first, and we lose reward because we put self first. Galatians 6, 7, and 8. Do not be deceived. God's not mocked. For whatever man sows, he will also reap. For he who sows in his flesh will the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will reap everlasting life. If we live our lives for eternity, and the things that we do here is to invest in what God's doing, we will experience a great judgment. But if we live for ourselves, and God is kind of an intrusion on our life, and Jesus is sort of a burden, and the church is kind of a little anxiety play, when all this stuff starts happening, then we can expect a judgment that's not so good. It's a judgment that's not going to be what God desires for us. Now, appearances and assumptions are the things we live by today. Somebody appears to be holy, appears to be godly, appears to be successful, we go with it. Or we assume this person, look at this person, look what they've got. It's like that old commercial. Remember the guy he has a beautiful home behind him. He's riding his lawnmower through it, and he says, he's got this beautiful home. He's got this. His kids are at Ivy League school. He's got, and it kind of, the camera closes in on his face. He goes, and I'm up to my eyeballs in debt. That's what a lot of people are. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want those things. But I don't want the debt. See, there are assumptions and there are appearances. One of the largest churches in the United States for the longest period of time in Chicago. 2 years ago, the pastor was found that he'd been sexually harassing women in the church. This week, his mentor, who helped him to establish that church, who has taught and has printed materials and has put theology materials out there, has been found to do the same thing. They cannot find anyone to take the church, to pastor the church now. This church was the model for a lot of people for many years. Now this church is, it was appearances and assumptions. Things that seem to be. Now the problem is this, and we don't want to be fooled by our appearances, but there are times that we will be. But you understand this, put your trust in the Lord. You may be fooled, God is not. You look to the Lord, you follow His direction, however he's leading you, then you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. God will take care of it. He will bring it to pass. He'll bring everything together. Sometimes we just feel like, it's up to me. It's going to be. It's up to me. By the way, I understand that phrase, but I hate that phrase. Because if it's going to be, it's up to him. He wants to use me. He wants my strength, and he's got it. But ultimately, our success is not in us. You can work so hard. If God's not in it, it don't matter. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Look at verse 27. See, in our society today, there's a certain, I'm going to use a fancy word. Some of you know what I'm talking about, and I'll explain it. There's a certain aesthetic. There's a certain style. There's a certain thing that in this world you gotta represent. It's got to look a certain way. It's got to feel a certain way if it's going to be successful, or it's going to be acceptable, or it's going to be, and if it doesn't fit that aesthetic, then there's, it's not good. That's not just for homes and businesses, and it's in ministry too. That's what Paul said in verse 27. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And base things of the world and things which are despised hath God chosen. God chosen. Yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are. That no flesh, this is the reason that God chooses these things, that no flesh can glory in his presence. But of him are ye in Christ Jesus, who of God is made unto wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption. That according as it is written, he that glorieth, glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. To say it, throw the aesthetic out. Ultimately, God's going to use the people, the things that goes against mankind to accomplish his will. Why? Why? Because ultimately, it's not the glory of you or your desires or your feelings it's what pleases God. And so what God does is he chooses those choice servants that may or may not be acceptable to this world. And he uses them to accomplish his will. And usually as the process is unfolding, that poor person that's being used of God is going to have to suffer some persecution. There was a 15-year-old boy. One day he was walking, he was in London, England, and it was snowing, and he found himself walking home, and he was so cold, and there was a little Methodist chapel. He ducked into that chapel and had services. The pastor could not even make it because of the weather. So there were just a few people together, and one of the deacons was up there preaching, and he found a passage that just said, look to Jesus, and he just kept saying, look to Jesus, look to Jesus, look to Jesus. He didn't know how to preach. 15-year-old boy got the message. He looked at Jesus. He came forward at the end of the service, and he knelt and asked Jesus to be his Lord and Savior. That young man's name was Charles Spurgeon. Charles Spurgeon, at 17, became a pastor. And in the late 1800s, or the early 1900s, 1919 particularly, I'm sorry, not 1990, the 1890s. In that era, his church was the first mega church. Thousands of people came. Everyone's heard of Spurgeon pretty much. Great preacher. As a matter of fact, Queen Victoria disguised herself so she could come here and preach. He had such an impact, influence. No schooling. No schooling. He tried to go to college, didn't meet the dean. something happened. The deacon was detained. He couldn't meet with him, so he just went home and he picked up his Bible and he picked up some books and he said, "Oh, I'm going to do this church alone." And he, of course, later started one of the largest seminaries in London. God used this young man that had no ability. As he was being used of God, all the other pastors were mocking him, making fun of him because he didn't have the credentials, he didn't have the credibility, and he didn't have that, while people were being saved. There was a man whose name was Ed Kimball. Kimball was an introvert. He couldn't talk. He was part of the church. He was in his church ministry. There was a young man who came to visit named Dwight. Dwight was a shoe salesman, and he had a heart for him. He'd see him at church. Couldn't talk to him because he was really bashful. But he was so burdened that he felt like, I got to share the gospel with this guy. So he mustered up all the strength, and the story is told Dwight was in the shoe store, and he looked and he saw Ed Kimball walking back and forth in front of the window, trying to get his nerve up to go in and talk to him. Finally, he opened the door and said, "Ed, what are you doing?" He said, I want to talk to Dwight. And he said, "Come on in." And he took a break and he sat down. And he said, what do you want? And basically, Dwight had to pull it out of him, the gospel. He shared the gospel with Dwight L. Moody, who got saved. And I don't know if you've heard of Moody Bible Institute. It was named after the young man who Ed Kimball led the Lord. God used Ed Kimball. There was a young man, his last name was Borden. You probably know the Borden food. He was the heir. He got saved and he gave away his whole fortune to become a missionary. He learned the language. He went to the mission field. He got sick and he died within a couple of months of being in the mission. His family said, "What a waste." And what happened is that he established some things in the process that to this day have revolutionized missions today. God uses people. And his judgment is so many. We could go on and tell all the stories of different people we've heard of. God has used. A bunch of teens came in to service. There was an old evangelist preaching, and they came for the purpose of making fun of the evangelist. They sat in the back. And as he was preaching, they would mock him and they would make fun. One of them, the one that instigated the whole thing, ended up coming forward at the end of the service because he got convicted of sin. And that day, Billy Graham was saved. You see, the way we look at life is very different than the way God sees it. God sees things way beyond us. And you say, "Yeah, I wish I could see things like God does." That's what he wants you to. He wants you to see things the way he sees them. That's why we have his word. That's why we have his spirit. That's why we come together to change the way we think about these things. Don't be fooled by outward appearances. Luke 16:15 says, he said that, "Yea, they are justify yourselves before men, but God knows your heart. For that which is highly esteemed among men is abomination to sight." God sees things very different than we do. And we as Christians need to see things the way God does. And we need to be sure to invest in heavenly reward instead of earthly reward. The real servants of the Lord will be revealed at the judgment seat of Christ. Look at Colossians chapter 5. Colossians 3. Look at verse 1. "If ye then be risen with Christ," that means if you're saved, "then seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on the things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory." What should be your attitude? What should be your heart? What will you be judged on? Whether you live here or you live there. How many of you grew up hearing, he's so heavenly minded, he's of no earthly good? You ever heard that? I have. That's not biblical. Now, I understand the thought behind it. That's that some people are just, they do nothing here. Their mind's up here. That's not true. If there's nothing going on here, there's nothing going on here. You see? If your affection is on God, your affection is on Christ, and your affection, then you are going to love those around you. You're going to minister in a way that is effective in other people's lives. It's impossible to be heavenly minded and no earthly good. If you are, this passage is saying, if you are heavenly minded, you will be ultimately of earthly good. You're no earthly good if you're not thinking about God. That's why Jesus even said, love the Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love your neighbors yourself. One flows into the other. Your love for heaven, your affections for Christ, that's the prize. Not this. The American dream should be there, not here. And if it is there, then God will use you here. You will have a joyous life, a good life. You're going to have heartache, you're going to have hardship, but God will carry you through all of that. Matthew 6, 19, 20. Jesus said, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves don't, till they can't break in and steal. Jesus said, listen, this is your life. This is your life. You're living this life. Make sure that your heart, that your affections, that your love, that your priority is always Jesus. Even when it comes to your family. I love my family. I love my wife. I love my children. I love my extended family. I love my family. But if I don't love God more than them, I cannot love them the way I should. You see, what happens if we don't love God first and pour our hearts out where He can give us the love and the affection and the selflessness to love our family and our friends and people around us the way we should, then what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is if we put ourselves first, because it's my family, it's my future, it's my purpose, it's my plan, it's what I've got. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. Then what's going to happen? You break fellowship with God, and you're not going to be good with the others around you because you're going to use them for you. You're going to, this is my family. I pour my life into my family. What's going to happen? There's going to be this ownership that whatever they do it's about you. But when you put your heart and your eyes and your life in God's hands, then what He's going to do for you is you realize, as I look at my family, they belong to God. That's my family. Yeah, listen, it's my family. But they belong to God. And I trust God with them. And I trust God to help me to be what they are. And that is for all of us in this church. I love this church. I love this church for a lot of reasons. I love it because of you. I love you guys. You're this church. I love the testimony of this church over the years. Let's go through some hardships over the years and some bad things that have happened in many churches, but God has seen Himself faithful in this church. But more importantly, I look at this church, and when I think of this church, I think of the body of Christ. We are the body of Christ. God Himself has placed us in this place at this time. And there is no place for us to worry, to be discouraged. There is only to trust God to do what He would have us do. He will bless us. He promises that. We will go through hard times. We will always go through hard times. Churches nowadays are going through hard times. Just kind of the way it is nowadays. But lest you think the church is not going to have any power and strength in this community, because you got to remember what Jesus said. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I love this church because this is the body of Christ. This is Jesus. This is what he died for. This is what he paid for. This is his. He established it. You didn't start this. I didn't start this. Our forefathers here didn't start this. God started this. And I trust him to bring it all the way through, to fulfill all that God would have it to reach Lansing, this area, with the gospel of Christ. And I don't know about you, but I want to stand before God someday, and I want to hear him say, well done. Not, man, you hit that mark, you hit that goal. Attendance was great that day. That's not what I want. I just want to stand before God when he says, well, good and faithful servant. That's the judgment. That's what's about. That's what now in this life we are to prepare ourselves to think, because someday when we stand before God, this message will come to mind and say, why didn't I start preparing then? Why didn't how many times have we had those experiences where we remember something, where we had the opportunity to not have to be in that situation? So God is through his Spirit speaking through his word. We need to prepare ourselves for a good judgment. Next week we're going to finish up by talking about the rewards. What are the rewards that we receive? And if you think about it, they get a little like icing on the cake. That not only are we in heaven, but we get rewards too. But these rewards are motivations for us. These rewards are to help us to accomplish those things. Let's pray. Our Father, we love you. And we thank you for all that you've done for us. I thank you, Father, for your love, provision, and just for making a way. Lord, there's so many things we face in our life. There's so many struggles, hardships, that, Lord, with you, if we would go through it with you, we would have strength, wisdom, understanding. And Father, I just would pray that you would just, again, help us to be thankful. Lord, if there are any here today that may not know you, I pray that you speak to their hearts, your word. The fact that Christ died for their sins. Lord, that they can trust Jesus to save them from their sins. And I pray that they will. Lord, I pray for those that are saved, Lord, who desire a closer walk with you. The desire to be what you desire that they fulfill your will. So, Father, I pray that you would help us at this time to apply these things we've learned today. To think about, Lord, what your desire is for us. And Lord, just give us the confidence to step out.